Good morning, ladies, and welcome back to the Islamic University English Poetry at the Islamic University English Department. Today we do something unique, different. We study a poem by a woman, and honestly we should have done this before. At least we should have included a couple of more poems written by women. In the 17th century, women started writing prose, diaries, and also poetry. And we should have included more poetry by women from the Romantic era. But this is actually a big issue we need to discuss. Like, women are not usually taken seriously as poets, sometimes even as writers. Why is it that we have very, very few poets? Why is it that we have more male poets than female ones? Now, there is a big question here. Some anti-feminist people who believe in the supremacy of men, believe that women cannot write poetry. Women are not good poets and are not even good writers, and they will give you a lot of evidence to support this argument. This is a stupid opinion. Because if you take any issue out of its context, you can be as simplistic, as idiotic as this opinion. Now, when I talk about women, when I think about women being writers and authors, I like to compare this to other issues. Look at, for example, the issues of minorities in America, black people in America, or look at Palestinians here in their occupied land, how they're treated by the Israeli occupation. In America, if you go to prisons, you will find a lot more black people than white people. And indeed, many people jump to the conclusion that black people have more tendency to be criminal than white people, and that's why some of you would come to the conclusion that black people are by nature criminal. That's wrong, of course. But you know, racists will always be racists, and white supremacists will always be white supremacists. If you take this out of context, okay. But if you look at America, how America has enslaved black people, how America is still treating black people. Look at only in the past, 6-7 decades, black people were segregated, were not allowed to go to the same schools and even the same colleges, to drink from the same water fountains as white people. Black people have not been helped. They have always been put down. They have always been deprived of the equal chances and equal opportunities. Black people have always been pushed to live in poverty, in abject poverty, in horrible, horrible housing conditions. And now when those people, and some of them lose hope, they can't have what other people have, their basic human rights, some of them would tend to go for, not to justify, but at least to put something in context. The same thing, of course, applies to Palestinians. Look at Israel has been doing to us Palestinians for more than 7 decades. Occupation, deprivation, death, destruction, massacres, siege, everything. And when one Palestinian reacts, resists, rejects this oppression, as we all should do, very quickly we are termed and branded as terrorists. Some people would look, if people look at this thing, this action, it might be described as terror. It shouldn't be. But that's the problem of looking at judging things without understanding their context, their historical background. So are women bad poets? Are women less intellectual than men? Definitely not. Aslan, we shouldn't be asking this question. Women have been excluded from the literary scene. They have been excluded from many things, from many jobs until recently. Women managed to start to vote only 100 years ago. Can you imagine this? Like, people started voting like 300 years ago, and only 100 years ago women started to be, and even until this very moment, women do not make the same money as men do. in terms of pay, in terms of even if they do the very same job. So this inequality creates some kind of hindrance and obstacles for people we can term as outsiders, whether they are people of color, whether they are women, etc. Now, there's something I mentioned before many times, an article by Virginia Woolf when she imagined what would have happened if Shakespeare had a sister. And this is a very simple idea, image here that we can follow, but it tells us a lot. It helps us unpack a lot. Shakespeare, of course, was sent to a grammar school because he's the boy, right? But his imaginary sister, Judith, wouldn't have been sent to school because she's the girl. She has to stay at home to help her mom to get ready, to learn things about life, about cooking, about cleaning, so that she can get married and have as many kids as possible. Remember the term pregnant, barefoot, and in the kitchen? That's the classical image about women. So if Shakespeare comes back with books, she wouldn't be allowed to even read them because, again, you are a girl. If Shakespeare writes poetry, he would be praised. Like, look at what this guy has just written. You know, look at Willie. Even if this writing is not, that good, but if his sister writes something, at least, if like, probably she's going to hide what she wrote. If her mom finds it, if her brother finds it, he would be making fun. We experienced this. Haven't you, some of you, experienced this? You write something, you're on diaries, poetry, whatever you call it, and then one of your brothers, one of your sisters, finds this and they start mocking you. We find this all the time. So she probably would be mocked, denounced. And I'm imagining this crazy idea where somebody finds a piece of writing, it's like, wow, Shakespeare, this is really cool. You've done a very good job. And then, but that's not mine. I didn't write this. And then when they realize that it belongs to the imaginary sister, it would be thrown out and thrown into the fire. Shakespeare would be pushed and urged to go to London to pursue his career in acting, in theater. But she wouldn't because there is a man waiting outside who wants to marry her. She doesn't know. And then Shakespeare goes, starts his life, starts acting, becoming Shakespeare. So the way has been paved for the likes of Shakespeare. But for the sister, she wouldn't be allowed. She would be mocked. She would go to somebody, try to prove that she's a good actress or actor. But you can't act on stage because, remember, many people, the Upstart Crow TV show, hilarious TV show we mentioned before, they keep doing this. There's a very good lady who has amazing ideas, very intellectual, very knowledgeable, who is also a good actor. She keeps asking Shakespeare I want to act. But you can't, it's the law. Forgetting that the law was made by man himself to advance himself and prevent others from advancing. Eventually she would end up like many women, probably raped, pregnant, and dead somewhere in London. That's why Virginia Woolf concludes that a woman couldn't have written what Shakespeare wrote. So the idea, if you read this idea, the opening of the argument, you could take this as an anti-feminist argument that women cannot do what Shakespeare. Of course, given the circumstances, women cannot, of course, couldn't, it was impossible for a woman to write what Shakespeare because nothing was there to help her. However, like 100 years later, many women started to write, Afra Behn, Mary Manley, and those great pioneers that were praised, of course, by Virginia Woolf and others. So even nowadays, we have the same thing. People look down upon writings by women. There is, probably I can post this online. There's this man who said, I read the first paragraph from a novel and I can't tell whether this is a man or a woman. In a condescending way, like considering that women are too emotional, too sentimental, rather than, probably objective and creative and critical. There was an uproar because this is anti-feminist in itself. There are differences between men and women, but not in this, men being good and women being bad. And don't forget J.K. Rowling. When she wanted to publish Harry Potter, she was rejected many times, probably because she's a woman. And even when she was, her book was accepted, the agreement was not to write her full name on the cover of the book, because many people wouldn't want to read books written by women. So, J.K. Rowling rather than Joanne something Rowling. So this is very interesting. I know it's not fair that we only take one poem here after 20 poems or so. We should have done more. Probably in the coming years I can do more. But I try to balance this. There's no excuse. I try to balance this by at least including more women issues in the discussion. We have a lot more female students than male ones, and it's only fair to do this. So Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and look at how the woman is taking her husband's name. She's always, her husband was also an intellectual and a poet. Probably we mentioned this before in another course, how women, when they are good, it's usually attributed to their husband or to a male tutor or something. That she was influenced by Pope, she was influenced by some other poet, which is unfair. Okay, so this is the poem we have, How Do I Love Thee, by Elizabeth Browning, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Elizabeth Barrett. Call her whatever you like to call her. I'll read, and I want 2 or 3 of you to recite the poem. Are you there? How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach, when feeling out of sight for the ends of being and ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need, by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they turn from praise. I love thee with a passion put to use, in my old griefs and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose. With my lost saints, I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. Please.
How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight. For the ends of being and ideal grace, I love thee to the level of every day, most quiet need by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they turn from grief. I love thee with the passion put to you, in my old griefs and with my childhood faith. I love thee with the love I seem to lose. With my lost saints, I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life, and if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death.
Very good. Yes? Very good reason.
How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach, when feelings out of sight. For the ends of being and ideal grace, I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need, by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely, as men strive for right. I love thee purely, as they turn from praise. I love thee with a passion put to use in my old griefs, and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose. With my lost saints, I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death.
Okay, with my lost saints. Very good. One more, please.
How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and high. My soul can reach from feeling out of sight for the ends of being and ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every days, mostly quiet need by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely, as many strive for right. I love thee purely, as they return from praise. I love thee with the passion but put to use in my old graves and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose, with my lost pain. I love thee with the brave smiles, tears, all my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death.
Okay, nice, nice reading. What is the theme of the poem? Are you sure? How can you tell? Yeah? Is it easy? Is it just a hit or miss, or is it an informed guess?
No, because there's a lot of I love.
Okay, how many times is the word love mentioned? Did you count? Did you count the ways? Can we count? There's 1, 2, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9. There's 10. That's a lot. Yeah. And even the phrase, I'm not sure how many words this is, probably 130 words, the whole thing. And if I love thee is repeated like 10 times, it means like it's almost 1/3 of the whole poem. Is that good or is that bad? Okay, I want you to look at the text. I'll give you 1 minute and tell me what you like about it. In terms of anything, in terms of theme, language, structure, anything. What do you like about it? Take your time. Look at it. Anything. Theme, structure, language, form. Please.
It has 14 lines, so it's a sonnet.
Okay, so does that mean you love sonnets? You like sonnets?
They like sonnets.
My question was, what do you like about it? You're saying this is 14 lines, so it's a sonnet. So do you like sonnets? Do you think it's good if somebody is written in the form of a sonnet? Is it a bonus?
Yes. The truth of the word.
No, let's go to the sonnet form. What do you think? Is it good? Would you be more encouraged to read a sonnet? Somebody tells you, hey, this is a sonnet. Would you be more willing to read it when somebody, rather than when somebody says, there's a poem?
Yes, because it has a simple language and
The sonnet or this one?
This one.
That's another thing. That's one thing, something else. Would you be more encouraged, willing to read a sonnet?
Yes.
The sonnet is highly richer, the form is highly richer. So she's maybe telling that, yes, I'm more, but I can write.
Do you like this about the sonnet, about the poem?
I like it because she's challenging.
I like it because she's indicating that she can be a competitor to other male counterparts of our society.
Okay, but the sonnet itself, the sonnet per se, let's say that this is not written by a woman. Somebody tells you, hey, I wrote this sonnet. I want you to read it.
For me, I personally like sonnets.
Okay.
They are very musical.
Yes, for me too. I do like sonnets because it's amazing how the writer challenges himself in writing a whole topic in 14 lines.
But this is not a himself, this is a herself.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm speaking about sonnets themselves. I like sonnets because it's amazing when you're encouraged to read how.
Okay. So basically, I think I would, if somebody tells me, hey, I wrote a sonnet, would you have a look? I say, okay. If somebody tells me I wrote a poem, I would be afraid that the poem might end up an epic, like 1,000 lines. I don't have time for that. So, but a sonnet is like, it's well measured. You have, I think, more information about the form in general. You have already some information stored there. Okay, very quickly, is this a Shakespeare or a Petrarch a Petrarchan poem. Can you tell? Can you do the rhyme scheme?
Yes.
Okay. B, B, A, A, B, B. So far, what is this? How did you know? Oh, Shakespeare? What is this so far? What is this in the sonnet? An octave. What is an octave? 8 lines in Petrarch rhyming A, B, B, A, A, B, B, A. Remember I said mirroring, there is a repetition here. It's they mirror, the 4 lines mirror the 4 lines. More? C, D, C, D, C, C, D. And this is? A sestet.
We have imperfect rhyme.
6. Oh, we do? Where's that? Grace and days? Okay, possible.
Grace is the imperfect rhyme.
I think this should be lose. To lose. This is to use, lose, and choose. So probably we have, well, the sounds are very close. Sometimes you wouldn't notice the s difference, but there is the imperfect rhyme here. So is this a Petrarchan or a Shakespearean? Is this a Shakespearean or a Petrarchan sonnet? Petrarchan or Italian? Petrarch or Italian? The Petrarchan is there, although other Italian poets wrote sonnets, but the most common form is this. And if you notice that there is a variety of rhyme schemes for the sestet. I quizzed you on this in the exam, and some of you didn't do a good job. It's because I didn't mention it. You only want things that I mention in the class. Although, just thinking a little bit, you could have answered that correctly, because by eliminating all other answers, you go to the right guess. Yeah, anyway, forget about exams. Okay, what else do you like about this poem, about the sonnet? Other than the fact that it's a sonnet, it's Italian. Listen, the fact that it is an Italian sonnet could be just coincidence, but we've been learning that there's nothing as coincidence here. It could be a message. She is leaving Shakespeare behind, ignoring Shakespeare, and going for Petrarch. Is there a message? Is there a protest against probably all English culture, heritage, customs, traditions, keeping? Some people might say that a Shakespeare sonnet is more rigid, thus probably more difficult and more challenging to imitate. Like probably it would be too much for a woman, which is not good to say. What else do you like about the sonnet? What else about the poem?
I like the fact that I felt that she's talking to me, she's telling me
Ah.
story.
So this is a very personal experience here. It's not an imaginative situation where somebody imagines somebody.
You could feel the
Okay.
touch of a woman.
Okay, so you like the feeling, you like the emotions. Did you feel this the same with Shakespeare? Was it personal? Did it feel personal to you?
More generic
Yeah.
person.
That's a good difference. What else?
Shakespeare used to control the woman about court love. The woman is rejected, but here the woman, herself is loved. She adores a man.
Okay, so the fact that the speaker is a woman also makes it special. The woman is free. She's not controlled. She's not.
I like that the words are simple and deep.
Interesting. What difficult words do we have? What, saint? Saint? You should know saint. Other than this, depth and breadth, height, candlelight, praise. We know this already probably, huh? So very simple. It's the simplicity of language. Do you like poetry to be difficult or simple?
Not so simple that it would be like very similar to our everyday speech.
It's still poetic. But again, there's this argument that that's the most difficult thing to write is to write an easy thing, something that appeals to everybody. Rather than, because remember, many people, including like outsiders like John Donne and women in particular, they believe that poetry has to be for all, including children, women, people on the margin of the society. Poetry should not be the monopoly of the elite, people who go to Oxford or Cambridge or the University of London. So this thing about poetry being difficult is not, many people believe that this is part of what poetry is. If you write poetry, you have to write difficult poetry, challenging poetry, poetry that not many people would understand. Now, many people believe that this is something that was introduced to poetry by just the elite because they wanted to keep it for them. So you write something difficult, nobody understands. Everybody's like, oh, I don't like this. I don't want to be even a poet. But now women and outsiders look at what the Romantics did. They believe that simplicity is key. Use language from your own life. Why would you go back to 100 years, 300 years, or I don't know, and then bring words from, did words, did metaphors, complicated syntax, complicated structure. But still, this is a personal preference. Many people would like a more challenging form, so the more they dig, the deeper they go and the more satisfied they feel with themselves. What else is there that might make this a good poem?
Enjambments everywhere. There is enjambments for the lines.
Like what?
I love to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach.
And there's one more, I think.
I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet.
Okay. This is a list. There's a listing here. There's 1, 2, 3 that could help with the argument. What more?
I think what's more interesting about this is not the form or that it's a sonnet or how or the simple language. It's that this is the thing that attracted me to this poem and the poems of the Romantics. You feel emotion when you read it. It's not like
So this is not a collective. The poet is not being a collective poet writing for everybody. This is a personal, very personal experience.
She's actually pouring her heart into her writing.
Okay.
That's
That's a very good thing to say.
The first thing that grabbed my attention was that she did not really mention any physical traits of her beloved. Like, for example, when you talk about Shakespeare, in every poem he is describing how fair his lady is and how, like, about her eyes.
Compared to things,
Exactly. And the second thing is that.
But here we have abstract things like love, passion, faith, right? Faith.
And the second thing is that she and he are together in every line or in every part. So she's not only talking about herself like the neoclassicals used to do, like I will bring you and I will do and 1, 2, 3. But here she's making them
so you're saying that this is basically unconditional. It's not tit for tat. It's just give me this, I give you that.
Yeah.
It's not come and then I'll give you everything. Come be mine and then I'll give you everything. This is unconditional. One more?
When I count these syllables, I find that each line contains 10 syllables.
All of them.
No, except the fifth line.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's possible. Although you could, remember, when you have an extra syllable, could indicate that one schwa is dropped, like every rather than every. It's actually every, right? We don't say every. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, level. I don't know. That's possible. So it could either indicate that there's an extra thing added here, or the fact that one of the schwas or weak syllables dropped. What do you dislike about this poem? Is there anything you dislike about this poem? Look at it again. So there are many things that you like about it, which is really cool. Is there anything you don't like about the poem? Think about it. Look at the text. It doesn't mean if you love a poem and you dislike something about it, there's nothing wrong with that. But is there something that makes you not many hands are raised, which is okay. It's telling in a sense, huh?
Actually, I didn't like how the way she loves him too much, or she's like it's.
What is too much? What is too much in love?
Like men don't do that, or when like they face a woman that loves them that way, they don't like appreciate that or.
Remember the poems, the love sonnets we examined before? Not once was the word love mentioned, or I love thee. Not once. It's either you're beautiful, you're fair, and I want you, I like you, because you're fair, because you're beautiful. But here, we don't have that. Okay. That's very good. More. Now more hands are being raised. Oh.
In fact, that is what I love the poem, that she is expressing herself. She's not being fake. Don't think that that's too much, but she's being honest with herself and with her feelings. She's not restricting herself to be as men want her to be, or to be as good, like to write.
The etiquette to بصح شعيب, don't do this way. What will people say about you? She's probably seemingly she doesn't care about that. She's being herself.
We shouldn't be measuring whether it's too much or not based on what men do.
Okay, more.
Another thing is that, I think I disagree with Roseanne because I don't think the poet here exaggerate her feelings. Because I think, for me, I would take this poem and can express my feeling for anyone I want.
Okay, the question here is okay. So everybody's disagreeing with Roseanne. My question is when we talk about repetition, how many times is enough? Like if you write something, remember repetition is a feature of poetry, right? How many times in a short poem are you allowed to repeat something when it is too much? As much as you want. Can you write the whole, if you write this way, I love thee, I love thee, I love thee. I love thee, I love thee, I love thee. I love thee, I love thee, I love thee. Would it be still cool? How many times is this repeated? This is Roseanne's point. That's like what? How many times? I love thee. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 times. Probably you twice, there's emphasis there. Thrice, there is more emphasis there. 4 times, there's yet more emphasis. But 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, is the woman, I don't know, selling herself cheap?
I think it's emotional. I agree with Roseanne because it's too much for a man.
To handle.
A man doesn't deserve that much.
Okay. Somebody don't tell her husband. Okay.
Okay, can I say something?
Oh, quickly.
If you give that much love to a man, they might say that you're easy,
You're selling yourself cheap.
Yeah, that's what.
Is this a desperate woman?
Yeah, that's what they might say.
No, it's hard to take this for she expressed her feelings in a very moral manner. So if she shows, it's like you're falling into anti-feminism again.
Who?
Too. You.
I'm not. I never do. Or at least I try not to do that.
Wait,
One more.
So by expressing her feelings,
I'm not saying, listen, I'm not siding with others. I'm just raising points, try to provoke you into being angry. Yes? Yeah, please.
I think if she just in one line mentioned his love to her, that would give us balance.
Balance. This is, by the way, somebody said that what men expect women to be and to do, to behave. There's nothing in return. This is unconditional, pure, complete, and utter dedication from the woman. She's not even asking the man to bring her shawarma like we had in another text, every other line. Well, possible. Okay, I'll come back to this. Probably we can wrap up with this.
she could have given this to her child.
Shema.
Actually, I respect that she is expressing her feelings, but I didn't like it at all because it's too simplistic, too easy. Like, when you read it, you
See, somebody doesn't like the simplicity now.
when you read it, you can figure that there could be a woman.
Oh, don't do that.
Full of feelings.
Okay, I'll post this article. I think it was The Guardian. The Guardian posted this quiz when this man said that he can guess whether the author is a man or a woman from the first paragraph. The Guardian posted a quiz. They got like 5 openings from 10 novels. You read the openings and you guess whether the writer is a man or a woman. I'll post this on the Facebook group and you can try your luck with I'm not sure how what score you're going to get. What else do you dislike about this poem? Anything else other than this? Anything else, please?
I think she should have written about more intellectual topics than being too...
This is only one poem. And that's why we take one poem that could represent or not, go back to her other poems and see whether she does the same. But if somebody chooses a particular theme, okay, we could say she could have written about that, but that's her choice.
By being too emotional and repeating I love thee 10 times, she's proving the myth of men that
Women are sentimental and emotional rather than intellectual and something. We'll see about that.
We don't have to say to the poet what should he or she...
Sometimes we do, right? Sometimes we protest something.
We have to deal with this, with her...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There are other poems. Go back to her poetry, her literature, and see what else she wrote about. Finally?
At the beginning of the lecture, you said that we should read things in a context. Like, we're taking this very, very personal poem that would have probably been written not for publishing or whatever, and we're judging it based on stuff that are...
That's true.
Like,
That's true. I like to discuss issues in their context, so you don't get me wrong, but I don't like usually to discuss poems in their context. The context could be interesting, could be, you know, but it shouldn't be limiting our understanding of the text as a text. This is my way of doing things. Many people will always start from the context to understand the text, but I like to start from the text to understand the text. But I agree, this could have been a totally pure poem, a poem not meant to be published, and then it found its way out to be to the publishing house. Briefly.
She replied to him and she says that by being emotional, she's proving what men say. Why should I, as a woman, shape myself, my writings, and what I do based on what men think of me?
That's true.
And why should
So if men accuse women of being too emotional and sentimental, you should not say, I shouldn't be emotional and sentimental in this here on this occasion because men are watching or something. That's a very good point also.
We're generalizing that all women are emotional based on what she says.
On one
and
poem.
We're generalizing that all men will think her emotional too.
Okay. So take man out of the scene and things will be fine.
It will be still will be a very cheesy love poem, and I hate this kind of.
That is the word here. That could be like, you could look at this as cheesy, you know, not cheesy with, you know, pizza and cheese.
I usually hate melodramatic things and cheesy things as much as you do.
So in other words, what does the poem say about women?
They're sentimental.
Or like about this woman, about the speaker, about the poet?
And also, as we said about Marius Can Live With Me, we said that he's too idealistic in his love. And I also see that she's also too idealistic.
She's not realistic.
There's no one loves that beauty or that freedom or from...
That's possible because there are extremes here. Look at this. Sun, candlelight, day and night. Look at this. With the breath, every smile, every tear, all my life. And if God chooses, should be chooses, but that's poetic license here. I shall but love thee better after death. Whose death? Is she saying just go die, I'll love you more? Or after my death? Or after our death? These are extremes. I agree that this is ideal, this is too much. So does this tell that this woman is cheesy, out there, selling herself cheap? Or what? Please.
I see that women, when they have the chance to write poetry, like in her love poetry, she said, like, exaggerating.
It's not, again, please don't judge. Go back. I like that there are these extreme ideas coming here and there. Go back to her literature and read more poems and see. You don't have to like her poetry, but doesn't necessarily mean she's a failure.
I think that even if she feels that love to her, she doesn't have to show that much.
Okay. So the more important question to me, how does the poem portray men? How does the poem portray men?
Unattainable.
They are unattainable? How's that? They're like the wild hind, you know?
They are selfish.
She didn't even mention a man. I'm sorry.
She didn't? She didn't? Are there men in the text? Again. Type. Are there men in the text? Is the man there? Yes,
As many strive.
only this?
No, it's not.
No, in the text.
Human being.
In the text. Men. Where are men in the text?
There's women.
Look at the text. Where are men?
I wouldn't say.
Look at the text. في مش فيش. Where are they? Okay, so okay. Okay. Mash, okay. So you're using everything we said about men here to take revenge, to avenge that. But I think the boys should be doing this, not you. So I love thee freely as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they. There are references to men in the text.
Not like that. I would say that. I would.
Like men, human beings? I don't think so.
I would say that he exists.
She could have said, as man strives for right.
But I would say that he exists in every line because, as I said before, if we can consider the word "thee" to have many different meanings. We always do this in poetry. So if we want to say that one of these, I don't know, like hypothesis that it is a man, he would exist in every single line. But if it's a child, he would also
But
exist in every single line.
explicitly, we have the man mentioned here clearly. And look at, like, supporting Reem's argument. Look at how the binaries here are created. Women being cheesy, sentimental, emotional, probably unintellectual, as men want women to be or think women are. But men strive for right. For truth, they struggle. Their life, again, this is the opposite. How men are represented as people who constantly fight for truth, to bring livelihood, to protect themselves, to protect their families, to protect their countries as people of, intelligence. And also, as they turn from praise. If this is the case, if women are presented as cheesy and sentimental, and men are presented as intellectual and fighters for truth, this is still something anti-feminist. My question is the speaker or the poet, is she promoting these male constructs that women are sentimental and men? Would you accuse her of being anti-feminist?
I believe that even if we find in that time's women literature signs of anti-feminism, we should not take this as she's agreeing with that. She was living in a kind of society that taught her that things are this way. It is not intentional. She was raised this way. I think that the act of writing itself is a sign of Christ.
That's right. So the fact that she's writing shows resistance to men's constructs that women cannot write, they can't, write poetry, can't be poets. Please.
Maybe that's what she's trying to show in her poetry, trying to say that comparison between men and women, and using the binaries and how she presented the men in the poem. Also, maybe she's trying to teach men how the real love is. In previous poems, the love was materialistic.
Largely, yeah.
Love is unconditional. So maybe she's trying
Was physical. This is more abstract.
Yes.
Now I find this interesting here, how men strive. Believe me, men always strive for food. Men are always hungry. They don't usually strive for right. But what I find interesting is this. As they, referring to men, turn from praise. What I understand is that she's saying, I love you as much as men turn from praise. Listen, nobody dislikes praise. Nobody turns from praise. We all like a good compliment once in a while, right? Right? Somebody could tell you, wow, what a nice handwriting, and that changes your whole day. Or somebody tells you, I like your pen or pencil or bottle or mobile cover, and then, or mobile, whatever, and then it would change your life. We don't like, have you ever seen somebody beating up somebody because they were praising them? Because they said good things about them? We like to hear good compliments. We like to hear praise. especially probably men, I'm not sure. Probably we are equal in this. Men and women are the same. But I take this as being like a mine. You know what a mine is? Logom, when you plant something. So I like you as much as somebody hates pizza. Good. And then you realize that person loves pizza and adores pizza. Like, what? I think she's saying the opposite here. Men never, in my opinion, men almost never turn from praise. Men almost never turn from praise. People in general almost never turn from praise. We like it. We go home saying, the teacher said this to me, somebody said this to me, a stranger said this to me, somebody complimented my whatever. And then you'll be over the moon for this. My point is that's my second question. Is this a serious poem? Is this a light-hearted, sarcastic poem? Do you think the woman is serious? The tone is serious? Or is she being condescending? You know, condescending? You know, behaving as a superior, and the other, the man, is an inferior. Who thinks this is a serious poem? Who thinks this is a sarcastic poem? Comic poem? Serious? Who thinks it's a sarcastic poem? How's that?
She speaks very much about love, how she loves him, and I think that's too much. She can consider just 2 lines to speak about him. So because of that, I think it's a comic poem.
Okay. What else?
Maybe it's not completely serious. On the other hand, it's not completely sarcastic.
There is love, but this is, you know the word hyperbole? This is how you pronounce it, hyperbole. Hyperbole is an exaggeration. I think there's too much here of an exaggeration. Like even here, I love thee after death. I love you to depth, breadth, and height. And even the repetition 7 times, 9 times, I love thee, I love thee, I love thee. It's too much.
It's all about exaggeration and repetition.
But not 9 times. I challenge you to bring a poem this short with a phrase repeated this many times.
She's writing this poem and challenging society which don't respect women's poetry. So maybe also she's criticizing the over-emotion women that give love without waiting for mutual love, for example. Or without
What I have in mind is that, okay, a man would take this poem and is like, oh, wow, I like this poem. This woman loves me too much. She loves me. And then, like, reading it, okay, a first reading would just say that this is a serious poem about a woman expressing, declaring her love, right? If you take it home, upon a second and a third, probably a fourth reading, you could unpack even more deeper meanings. So you could be tricked into taking this as a declaration of love. I am the perfect man. This woman loves me unconditionally. But then when you go home, the poem starts to grow on you, like, you know, on your nerves. By being hyperbolic, in a sense, by being repetitive here, and also probably this, in my opinion, this is the key issue here, that as she's going to love him as much as men turn from praise. Men never turn from praise. Is she hiding? Is this saying that, hey man, I am smarter than you. You're stupid. You read this poem and you thought it's a pure love poem, but in reality I am hiding more, like the fact that this is resisting your idea that women are simple, women are simplistic, and women are not intellectual enough. I am outsmarting you in this particular way. What I also feel is that's why I think when I read the poem, you know, again and again, I feel that she's being condescending, patronizing. I think only a kid or someone that lacks their self-confidence, somebody who wants assurance every day, every now and then, every minute that this woman loves him. This is what kids usually do. Kids want you to show them you love them, to tell them you love them, to give them food and stuff and offer them stuff to prove your love to them. And so the repetition here does not only emphasize this declaration of love, of pure love, the extent of her love, but could also indicate this condescending and patronizing tone. The fact that She's dealing with this man as a child.
He's a joke to her.
Please.
I think also the last line of the poem shows the paradox that she says in the whole poem, I love, and then in the end she says, but I wish I shall love you more when you die.
Oh yeah, thank you for this. I didn't pay attention. Probably so this we think this is everything. This is the peak. But then we realize there's still space after death. After death. And I'll ask you a question here in a bit. Why is it that women are usually associated with death in English literature and Western literature? Why do women always bring death? Why do they always die? There's a book I like mentioning all the time called Upon Her Dead Body. Upon Her Dead Body. Fascinating book. You know, when somebody, this is an idiom actually, somebody, hey, why wouldn't you treat me to some ice cream? You say, upon my dead body. I'd rather die than treat you. So upon her dead body, the argument is that women have always been associated with death. Women always die. Look at Ophelia, look at the Lady Macbeth, and sometimes they're even, it's not like men usually die fighting, heroic like Macbeth, he's a villain. But at the end of the day, we have some respect for him because he dies fighting. Unlike Lady Macbeth, who chooses to end her life. So that's something you can think of. So yeah, possibly that there is still space for love after death. This is like Shakespeare in a way, but Shakespeare focuses more on people remembering him. He's like too self-absorbed, self-centered here. When you live in my poetry, in my eternal lines, you will be remembered forever and ever. But this is not about memory. This is about love. Probably this is she's a religious woman. I don't know. I don't like to put religion in poetry here. But if God chooses and after death, probably she believes that they will be united after death, and then she will also be loyal to him by loving him even more.
Last line, she loved him more after he dies or after she dies?
It's ambiguous. If you follow the pattern, no, if you follow the pattern, because she says, my old griefs, my childhood, my, so probably this is my death, after my death, or after, so creating ambiguity. Could be both, after,
Or after.
yeah, when they both die, or when he dies, or when she dies. Please?
I don't know, but thinking that it is a Petrarch and Sonnet. Could it be like a criticism for the Petrarchan love and the call to love?
Okay, so thank you for bringing this. Remember when we spoke about love in Petrarch? Petrarch deals with the lover as an abject lover. He who is desperate for the love of the beloved. So probably this is closer to Petrarch rather than, or if you still see this as too much, too cheesy, you could take it as a criticism of Petrarch. We'll go through some issues and then see if you have general comments to say. This is the question I just told you about, how women are usually linked to death, and why is that? By the way, these are issues I like to raise because they could be topics of your research. If you're doing research, if you want to do literature, MA, or even PhD, this is a very interesting topic. Death and women in Palestinian literature, in Palestinian poetry, in women's writings. So we said this is a Petrarchan sonnet. How is this thematically different from the Shakespeare sonnets we studied? Probably you can think about this when you go home. I'll go through the general points and then stop if you don't have questions. So we said this is a traditional love poem in the form of a sonnet. Elizabeth Browning treats love as a very, very personal issue, and you felt this already. Because she's trying here to qualify her love, to her husband. I'm not sure whether this is going to make a difference or not, this being written to her husband, Robert Browning, a famous Victorian poet. When it comes to diction, the poem is dominated by abstract nouns, like passion, faith, love, soul, because the subject itself is abstract, it's love, right? The language develops a contrast between extremes. There are many extremes here in an antithetical way. sun and candlelight, day and night, smiles and tears, happiness and sadness, life and death, beginnings and endings. This, of course, helps basically us understand the declaration of her love in familiar things, because we're surrounded with these things. Modifiers like old and childhoods and lost and lose, probably they suggest that how this woman feels without her man. She's lost. She's nothing. She's in the past. Emphasize the power of love to transform life, giving it hope. There are many grammar issues we could focus on. The shift in the opening line from the question. Again, and I'm not sure how, again, somebody said this could be a letter. How do I love thee? What kind of tone is there? How do I love thee? All I've been doing to you? And you're still asking, you want assurance. Let me count the ways, from interrogative, from question form, to imperative, let me, and then to declarative, the whole poem declaring the extent of her love. This could help, this shift from interrogative to imperative to declarative could help the reader focus their attention following how she lists, how she logically explains how many times the ways she loves him. And then there is the present simple tense dominating, and also at the end there is the future tense, indicating the non-stop love continuity of her love. There are rhetorical features. The repetition of I love thee, to intensify this, this experience. There are two lists here when she lists depth, breadth and height, and also breath, smiles and tears, logically trying to, and also there are the parentheses and the commas. In a way, this is like an academic essay, an academic paragraph where she logically organizes her, logically and emphatically organizes her argument. Again, going back to the fact that this is an Italian Petrarchan sonnet, in theme and in structure, an octave, an assisted A, B, B, A, B, B, A, C, D, C, D, C, D, with a slight of an imperfect rhyme somewhere and an extra syllable in line 5. Almost each line consists of 10 syllables, 5 feet, creating regularity here. The regularity and the rhythm, the regularity of the rhythm underpins, emphasizes the poem's logical attempt to explain her love. She's trying to control, because emotions cannot be controlled. You try to control them in this form, rigid form. And this is significant here. The meaning and the form are one. The meaning helps the form helps the meaning. They're all connected. In other words, this is my conclusion here. The tightness of the poetic form, the tightness of the sonnet, the rigidity of the sonnet, orders and limits the poet's love, making it possible for her to express in a lucid, controlled way. And that's the first poem we study for a woman this semester. Hopefully we'll be studying a lot more. Okay, say something, anybody? Any comment? Please?
She doesn't reply about her love. Can we consider this poem as unrequited love?
Probably, yeah. Not necessarily in like the reply shouldn't be in the form of poetry. Shouldn't necessarily be in the form of poetry.
We see that opinions of women.
Can you do that? Can you imagine what the man would be writing if he writes a sonnet back or a poem? Give it a try. Give it a try. Imagine you being the man and write a reply to Elizabeth Browning.
If we consider Elizabeth clever enough to criticize many her use of simple language, essentially the adversary is a man, so she even doesn't deserve her eloquent language.
Okay. Nice.
Just keep saying unconditional love, but the fact there is no unconditional love. It's unconditional, so there is a psychological issue.
There's a problem with the woman.
Even if a woman or a man, there is no unconditional love. It's not love, it's something.
That's a very philosophical thought here. Do you agree, everybody? Unconditional love is not love. Don't our mothers love us unconditionally? They do. But basically, the mother instinct is that they love us unconditionally, or we would almost all be dead by now. Yeah. I think mothers. This is. I don't want to compare man-woman love relationships to that of mothers and kids.
The condition is that you are waiting for not just to take, but not just to give, but to take.
So it's like we don't give our mothers, they will not take.
Maybe the man loves her and
Our family expects us to be okay, our families expect us to be good, our parents.
When you are a kid, when you are 1 or 2 or 3 years old, what do you give your mom? Probably you give her meaning to life. You give her something in return. Like kids give us something in return. They make us.
Feel the feeling of motherhood. So I give her the feeling of motherhood.
But still, we have kids who have nothing to give and to offer, and they still loved unconditionally. But again, I don't want to compare this to that. I don't want to compare this. But that's a very important point. Think about this. Is unconditional love untrue love?
We took this poem and by only
Ladies, excuse me, ladies, yes.
We took this poem and only by this poem we judged that her love is unconditional. Who said that her love is unconditional? And
At least it is here in this poem.
no, this is only an expression of love, and poetry is all about exaggeration. We
Okay.
know that.
Yeah.
So-
Poetry and drama, but I think
I'm sorry, and even if she loves him that much, why do we consider being emotional as something bad? Why do we consider it as something we should be
that's a valid point. That's a
And
good
why
point.
do we consider emotional women as silly? I can be emotional.
Who does that? Who thinks that?
Everyone here.
No.
We can be emotional.
Okay, Rahaf, don't be upset. Not everybody here.
Like in every poem, they start criticizing how the man doesn't put the woman in, and they go to extreme levels. And then when they come and read a poem for a woman, the first thing they do is call her emotional, stupid, unintellectual.
Yeah. So you're in many ways. Remember, women can be bad to women. Being like when you talk about anti-feminism and patriarchy, being feminist doesn't mean anti-men, and because there are men who promote women's rights, and there are women who are part of this patriarchy, the system, the mainstream, who could be the worst enemies and the worst nightmares for women and their rights. Okay, so that's a good point here, but I don't think everybody here thinks that being intimate is similar. Don't generalize yourself.
About personal opinions, like in general, the first thing that I said is that I love the poem, but it's too much love for me. Like I cannot handle this much of love. If I'm reading a
Too
novel,
much
for
cheese.
example. Yeah, if I'm reading a novel, I would not continue.
I think this is a momentary experience. After, for example, giving her shawarma, so
So that could bring that's the condition. So there's something, he brought her a gift, but I don't think this is good to women. You're being even more insulting, Reem. Okay, go home, think about this. I like to make you think when you go home, to make you angry or happy or whatever. If you have,
She's brave enough to show her love without being scared that he would do something or he would not give her something back.
okay. I'll stop here. We can continue the discussion. Thank you very much and see you next time. Good luck.